Welcome again to the session on poetics. We have finished first three chapters and today we take up fourth and fifth chapter. Such as the forms of most ignoble animals and of dead bodies. Even if we are watching something which is sad and not very happy to perceive, but still we feel pleasure not because we feel pleasure in watching these moments of pain, but because we feel happy with the way it has been imitated. And even the imitation of ugly objects, therefore, give delight. And this happens because of the element of relatedness, of recognition with the writer. The pleasure, in fact, in this case, includes that of getting to know or learning something because we have learned something. Then he says imitation is one such instinct which is inherent in human nature. The second cause is the instinct for harmony and rhythm. We see that the origin of poetry thus lies in our natural instincts because harmony and rhythm leads to meters of poetry, and it happens in our gradual growth and improvisations. He further says that poetry has diverged into two directions according to the individual character of the writer, because quite early, the poetry, when it broke up into two varieties, it corresponded with the personal temperament of the poet. The graver spirits imitated noble actions. The poets who had an inclination or who were serious in nature or had a grave nature, they inclined themselves or bent towards representing noble people or noble personages. And in this way, the earlier hymns and panegyrics were dedicated to gods was created. And was the reason how poets grew up writing heroic and epic poetry. The other kind of poetry, Aristotle says, is produced by poets or artists who are of frivolous and meaner natures, and they actually produced or represented ignoble and trivial actions. And this is how lampoons came into existence. They produced lampoons, satires, and invectives. And comedy is a branch that stemmed out or derives from iambs or personal satires. Now he says, in the case of Homer, his position regarding comedy and tragedy is very special and very different and peculiar because in Homer we find both the tendencies of writing tragedies as well as writing comedies. During his representation of superior or serious nature, he produced Iliad and Odyssey. And during his comic vein or nature, he produced Margites. Now, Margites or Margites is like the original flavor has been lost, but they both represent tragedy and comedy in their own way. In fact, Aristotle says that Homer was the first to outline these general forms of tragedy and comedy by producing a sort of dramatizing the ludicrous instead of writing personal satires, or dramatizing the picture of ridiculous and seriousness. Then he says that there are stages in the development of tragedies. The one originated with the authors of the Dithyramb, that is the tragedy, other with those of phallic songs, which are still in use in many cities. Tragedy advanced by slow degrees, he says. And several writers, he says, they have contributed in making the tragedy or attain the tragedy its form as we see it today. And the kind of magnitude and dignity which was chosen and the meter which was changed to iambic, this showed that it has passed through many changes. Then he refers to Aeschylus, who was the first one to introduce a second actor. The first came the addition of the second actor, this is what he says, and because the importance of the chorus was diminished. Sophocles further enhanced it by raising the number of actors to 3 and then also added some kind of scene painting. Then he says the iambic measure was replaced by trochee tetrameter, which was originally employed when the poetry was of satiric order. Then he says that for the iambic and all the measures, because iambic is the most closer to conversational speech or colloquial, we see that conversational speech runs into iambic lines more frequently than any other kind of verse. And so the additions of the number of episodes and acts and other accessories which were added, which we have already discussed and described, he says, was responsible for taking the tragedy to its shape and form that we see today. Then in the next chapter, Aristotle talks of the nature of comedy or the nature of how ridicule is presented, because he has further earlier said that comedy is the imitation of men who are worse than the average, imitation of character of a lower type, and however in the full sense of the word bad. Now we also have a reference to the word bad because for the Greeks, ugly was a simple equivalent or a synonym of bad. But comedy, he says, has many qualities because comedy ridicules, but it is not harming. Aristotle apparently probably had farce in his mind, because when he says that serious laughter persists in comedies also, so in comedy also the dramatist gives us a picture. It consists of detecting or defects of ugliness, for example. Then he further says that the successive changes through which tragedy has passed, or the author of these changes, he says we are well known with them. Comedy has had no history because it was not taken very seriously primarily. And later, when Archon granted a comic chorus to the poet, the performers started giving a proper shape to the comedy. And then masks, prologues, actors, and other similar details were added to comedy. And then came the plot, because plot also Aristotle says that it came from Sicily. But for Athenian writers like Crates, they abandoned the iambic or the lampooning form and generalized the themes and the plots while writing comedies. Then Aristotle says that epic poetry agrees with tragedy. Now he starts talking about the comparison, the contrast, the difference or similarities between epic and tragedy. And he says that both have a common feature, that they imitate, and both are written in verse, and both have characters of a higher type. But they say they differ. In epic poetry, one kind of meter and is narrative in form. Epic is narrative in form. And also epic and tragedy differ in length. Tragedy endeavors to confine itself to single revolution of the sun, or but slightly exceeding the limit, whereas epic action has no limits. The style, of course, is grand and elevated, but the difference that lies is that, first of all, the meter is different. Tragedy employs more than one meter. Epic is in the form of a narrative. And then there is difference in length, because epic's action can have indefinite length of time. It's not limited by time, whereas tragedy has limited action confined to a day or single circuit of the sun. Then he says there is another feature, that the constituent parts, he says they are the same, but tragedy knows about epic poetry. Then he mentions about the 3 unities. He says it's merely a statement that as far as possible, it should maintain the unity of place and unity of time. And both epic and tragedy have a number of constituents which are common to both and very special features. And he summarizes the chapter by saying that all the constituents of epic are present in tragedy, but not all the constituent elements of tragedy are to be found in epic. So all the elements of an epic poem are found in tragedy, but the elements of tragedy are not at all found in epic poem. Hence, we can judge good and bad, what is good and bad in tragedy, and we can also relate it to epic poetry. Then in the sixth chapter, he starts defining tragedy, and he says that the definition of tragedy, this we'll have to remember and cram rather. This is a definition given by Aristotle. Tragedy is an imitation of an action that is serious, complete, and of a certain magnitude, in language embellished with each kind of artistic ornament, several kinds being found in separate parts of the play, form of action, not of narrative, through pity and fear affecting the proper purgation of these emotions. And he further explains the language embellishments, etc. We will take up this chapter again in our next session, because this belongs to the second section of Aristotle's Poetics, which has been divided into sections further. Fourth and fifth chapter, Aristotle has talked about the origin of dramatic poetry. He has talked about the natural human impulse and instinct to imitate. Then he has talked about the two varieties of poetry, tragedy and comedy. Then he talks about Homer, who is equivalently good at both tragedy and comedy. And he says that comedy is meant to ridicule. And last but not the least, in the fifth chapter, he gives us a contrast and comparison between tragedy and epic. We will start up the sixth chapter in our next lesson. Thank you.